At least my sense of this conversation is you are a champion of meritocracy, right? You should be paid what values and you contribute and you bring to the table. I think a lot of, at least non-Malays in this country, view Bumiputera rights as something that is inherently unfair, at least from their perspective. My question to you is, how would you justify Bumiputera rights to the average non-Bumiputera? If the intention is to help the poor, why not just help the poor directly?
Well, in any society, the poor is always against the rich. And that can escalate to the point where they even have revolution. They want to get rid of the people who are rich. As you see in France, in Russia, they kill the kings. You see, because they think that, well, you're making too much money, we don't have, and we need to be properly reimbursed, and the society becomes unstable. There is conflict between rich and poor. But when the rich and poor are also identified with the race, the potential for instability, for an uprising of the poor is much greater. And when that happens, the country becomes unstable. And when the country becomes unstable, the rich will suffer and the country will suffer. Because stability is essential in order to develop a country.
That's true.
So to avoid that, we have what was called affirmative action.
That's right.
Affirmative action is something that was tried in America because they find that the blacks were left far behind. And there is conflict that is due to the division between rich and poor. Also, the poor are usually the blacks and whites are the rich people. So these two factors cause a lot of antagonism and often results in violence. So to avoid violence, we need at least to reduce the gap between rich and poor. Not to be absolutely everybody to be rich, but the gap must be reasonable. A certain percentage of difference is allowed.
Sure.
So that we have tried to do that under the new economic policy. But unfortunately, we succeeded only in certain areas, but not in other areas. For example, we give a lot of scholarships to Malays who, according to their performance, is not as good as the others, but it shows that they can benefit. For example, in the medical profession, at one time Malaysia, only 2% of the doctors were Malays. Under the new economic policy, we raised it to 40%.
Wow.
Very, very good.
Very impressive.
And they are good doctors. I mean, I am able to trust my...
You are a doctor after all. It's okay.
Trust your
me.
opinion too.
No, but when I had a heart attack, I didn't want to go to the Mayo Clinic. I had my operation done here because I trust them. They can do the work. And I have been to hospital 4 times for very serious ailments, and they have been able to treat me. So although in their SPM or in higher education, their score is low, but given the chance to be trained, they can perform. So we are correcting in that area. That part is successful. But then we come to the business area. Now, business is something that is quite strongly related to culture. You have to have a certain culture to succeed in business. For example, you must work hard. You must be honest. You must do the right things. All these things are needed. But when we created opportunities for the Malays, they only see a quick return. How do you do it? We give them a contract, they sold the contract. We give them a license, they sold the license.
I've been hearing
give
that.
them AP, they sold the AP. And as a result, the gap becomes bigger because the benefit of this move under the new economic policy benefits those who know how to make use.
Yes, how to
Those
take
who
advantage
don't
of it.
know. So we are still saddled with that. On the education side, we think that we have done fairly well, but on the business side, business is enriching.
Yes.
So they still remain very poor. Lately, of course, we are very concerned because they are poor. They're selling whatever they have, and among the things that they sell off will be their land. And see, their land running away from the city. Before in the city, there will be some kampongs in the city like Kampung Kerinci, Kampung Abdullah Hukum and all that.
Yep.
But now they're selling the land and moving out. You see, but the town is catching up on them. They move out to this place, the town enlarges, enriches
Move
them,
again.
and again the value of the land goes up. Somebody offers a good price, they sell and they move out. This is division, physical division, not only between rich and poor, between race and race, but between location where they are found. Now, this is dangerous because eventually the poor will, do something violent. Although in Malaysia we are fortunate, we are not violent people. You see, but eventually, desperate, you get events like the May 13th race riots. You see, May 13 is a very good example of that. When we became independent, we got rid of the British policy of not allowing locals to develop. But when we became independent, everything is allowed. For example, the British didn't want to give any license for banking because banks will stimulate growth. You can only borrow from their banks, Chartered Bank, HSBC, Mercantile Bank. So the moment we became independent, the license was given. Two people who understand banking, they happen to be Chinese. Two licenses were given, Malayan Banking, UMBC. And many other things that were reserved for the British, including land. Huge pieces of land were given to British companies. Malaysians cannot. Malays get 1 or 2 acres, Chinese get nothing. But after independence, then they can actually buy over all these estates. So the gap is widening, and we worry about this. We worry that if the Malays are move out and poor poor people will always complain. They will always blame somebody else, not themselves. So that is why, despite some little progress we have made with the new economic policy, certain aspects must be retained, but the approach must be different. We cannot give contracts to Malays so that they can sell.
Yeah.
Now, if you sell, it is invalidated. It's no longer accepted. You see? So they will have to do it themselves. And we have training programs for them to understand the management of money. Money to them is something that you change for something else. It's just an exchange. But money as capital is not a Malay thing. Their culture doesn't regard money as capital. But the Chinese, for 5,000 years, they have always been doing business. That's why they survive anywhere they go.
It feels that way. It feels that way.
Even if they go to America,
see.
Even Canada, they are doing very well.
We see them everywhere.
Yeah. Even Malaysian Chinese now can take contracts in Australia, bill for the Australian.